And we're live. So the Houthis have attacked an Israeli airport, and then Israel retaliated and bombarded their own airport. So let's watch some videos.
The recent Israeli airstrikes on Sana'a International Airport in Yemen, specifically the ones that took place on the 6th of May, caused such extensive damage that the entire facility is considered inoperable at this point. The runways were described as completely destroyed, effectively halting all flight operations completely. As far as the aircrafts are concerned, 3 out of 7 civilian planes belonging to Yemenia Airlines were destroyed, and there's also been footage and reports indicating that commercial aircraft were left burning on the tarmac, with some sources describing an airplane exploding due to the strikes. As far as the terminal and the infrastructure there, the passenger terminal sustained severe damage, with the departures hall specifically noted as being hit. Windows are blown out, concrete blocks are exposed, there's fires burning inside the terminal. The air traffic control tower was also targeted and described as completely destroyed. The adjacent airbase, Dailami Air Base, which was under Houthi control, was also struck, with reports indicating that there's been damage to the military infrastructure of that base as well. The recent Israeli airstrikes on control was also struck, with reports indicating that there's been damage to the military infrastructure of that base as well.
Whoa! 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 Whoa, it's a boom! Whoa! Yo! 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 Yo!
It's crazy. Everybody got some cell phones today. Now let's watch the video of the Israeli attack on the Houthis. That's the video you gave me.
Pillar of fire you got there.
Yeah. Wow, this is crazy. So today I have a special guest. His name is Daniel Westlund, a former Apache pilot in the U.S. Army and a former tank commander in the Israeli Army, born and raised in Israel, American citizen, living in America. And we're going to be talking some Houthis. So what is it with these clowns? I mean, why are they attacking Israel? I don't get it.
Well, first of all, it's nice to be here. So some people might be calling BS on they're both flying Apaches in the U.S. and being a tank commander in Israel. But yes, I assure you it's true. The circumstances are interesting, but yes. I have the FBI background check to prove it.
Yeah, actually, remember that?
Okay, weet je toch nog.
Okay, this is going to be cut.
I did no such thing.
Yeah, why are the Houthis attacking Israel? That just blows my mind.
Everybody knows that they're a proxy of Iran. It's not that a bunch of rebels in Yemen suddenly decided like, we're going to go after Israel. And yes, it's kind of a unifying cause across the Muslim world, right? Is Israel. However, the Houthis, for the longest time, they've been fighting for a while, but we didn't really hear about them because they were fighting against the Saudis. So Saudi Arabia has been fighting them for quite a while. But as far as the West, honestly, we don't. If it doesn't make, if the strikes don't affect the West, then it also doesn't really make Western headlines.
Yeah, but when the Houthis first came to our headlines, they looked kind of clownish, They looked kind of like, a bunch of Arabian Broadway actors with funny accents, barefoot riding camels and going around. I mean, here's another video. Let's watch this video and then we can talk about it. I just made this video on YouTube. Blew the heck out of the airport, and now we have this.
ايش تحتفل المدنيين واحنا بالسيارة حقنا في الخط طلعة مدنيين كلهم مدنيين ومحمد رسول الله ثاني يحب ندمه ونرد البحر احمر دم احمر ولا يقول عضو ولا نشبع الله بدمائهم ونحسن بلادنا بجميع المال الامني ونطلب من القوى الصارمة ان تاتي ما فيه بقوتها الى اسرائيل ضربا عنيفا ومن اعتدى عليكم فاعتدوا عليه مثل ما اعتدى عليكم المدني بمدني والعسكري بعسكري والمنزل بالمنزل لأنكم ولا النبي لو كنا صواري لنتوجه إلى إسرائيل. الله أكبر الموت لأمريكا الموت لإسرائيل الموت.
It looks like these songs, they got to finish it with death to America, death to Israel, and God slaughtered the Zionists. And you see how the kids just came and joined, like it's some kind of a school song that they've been rehearsing for so long.
That's what successful brainwashing looks like.
The question is, I mean, what do they think? Do they really think they can fight America and Israel? Seriously, what do they have? They have camels and donkeys. They're in the desert. They barely have shoes. And they're going and defying probably one of the strongest nations on the face of this earth. Definitely America, the strongest nation on the earth. And Israel, one of the deadliest countries on the face of the planet. And they're just picking a fight while they're fighting Saudi Arabia.
ردا على التصعيد الإسرائيلي بقرار توسيع العمليات العدوانية على غزة، تعلن القوات المسلحة اليمنية أنها ستعمل على فرض حصار جوي شامل على العدو الإسرائيلي من خلال تكرار استهداف المطارات، وعلى رأسها مطار اللد المسمى إسرائيليا مطار بن غوريون، وتهيب بكافة شركات الطيران العالمية أخذ ما ورد في هذا البيان بعين الاعتبار منذ ساعة إعلانه ونشره، وإلغاء كافة رحلاتها إلى مطارات العدو المجرم حفاظا على سلامة طائراتها وعملائها.
It's really weird.
Well, you of course know this, and anybody generally familiar with the way the Middle East works is when they pick these fights, it's win-win for them, right? What does a loss look like to them? What, losing people? They become martyrs. If you have civilian casualties or infrastructure damage, then they get more followers. So it's always basically they have no lose scenario. If they get occupied, what's the worst thing? What's the most extreme reaction that's going to be? An invasion, right? Well, let's say the U.S. goes in. All that means is it's easier for them to reach the infidels. It's not. It's just easier access. You can have even more martyrs because it is hard. Yes, of course. There's always talk of security of the border security. Can they smuggle people in? And of course they can, but that's still quite a major operation. It's not as simple as if they're able to just walk out of their house with their AK and start plinking away at an American convoy.
But do they have any scenario that they think that they're gonna win? That's what I don't understand. Like,
Well, it's a religious war. Ultimately, they want to bring back the caliphate.
Yeah, I mean, that I understand from the point of view of the Mujahideen. That guy riding a camel in the desert, he's like telling stories. He barely ever watched TV. He really believes that, God is going to bless them. The people in charge, they're in for the money. They're in for the politics. And what is their end game? Where do they see this end? I mean, if America will decide to go to war with the Houthis, they're done.
Mhm.
If Israel decides, that's it, gloves off, wow, they're going to be hit, so hard by so many directions.
Yeah, but that's also you're talking about the upper management, even all the way down, including the middle management, as it were, the local, unit, the troop commanders, the terror cell or commanders, those that leadership, they're also very religious and zealous. If you're talking about the upper echelons, they don't that often get their comeuppance. Eventually, many of them do, but that's the high-profile ones. We're talking if we go back some years, right? The biggest one having been Bin Laden. Eventually, he was caught up to. But look at the manhunt that was on. So that was one person compared to how many did he have even in the upper command cell. So yeah, here and there you'd hear, okay, Al-Zarqawi was taken out, another one was taken out. So we're talking handful versus what, hundreds, thousands that are actually in some kind of form of leadership. For them, they're still getting the benefits of all this support, whether it's coming from donations around the Muslim world, whether it's coming from Iran, depending on who's backing them. So ultimately, they get a much better life. And
I guess.
Yeah, they remember they always start out religious, right? So even if later they kind of lose that whole religious aspect, which I don't think they do. It's not that ultimately suddenly they they become atheists and they're in for the money and the glory. There's always going to be the religious element.
Yeah, I guess if you're a Houthi who grew up in a cave or somewhere in the mountains, that's like an opportunity to get into the leadership. You need to show that you're, special, that you're strong, that you're zealous, and then you start climbing up the ladders, and then you get to the point that you're like the head of Hamas. All four of them. Well, no one is left alive, I think, almost.
Yeah, but look, after what? They've been living at large, what, for 20, 30 years, 40 years?
Yeah.
Depending on which ones. So yeah, eventually, but that was after a major event. So even for looking when talking going back a couple decades to Al Qaeda, they were all that leadership was living large.
Yeah. Yeah, they start small, they start with the people, and then they find a way to steal the money from the people. They use their own people as human shields. And I guess the Houthis are thinking the same. They're thinking, yeah, you come here, how many can kill of us? Like, we're not afraid of death. And
No, they aren't. You know, when and that was something that kind of you really realize. I mean, you hear about it um, in theory, right? But to see it in practice. So for you know, on different on deployments when you have engagement. So you're going, particularly for myself. I'm not, you know, if you're on the ground with a rifle, it's a very different scenario. But if you're up in the air in a $25 million, you know,
war
modern
machine. Yeah.
cutting edge machine, and you're seeing the little guys running around on the ground, the enemy. And honestly, hats off to them. The courage that they were displaying was incredible. You know, it'd be the same for if you're now the U.S. Army and you have an alien invasion. It's basically the same tech gap, you know. So they're you know, to them they're the plucky heroes on the ground. They're the little guys that are standing up to the evil empire from the future. You know, so the dedication they have, it's nothing to scoff at. The religious aspect is not something that can be downplayed just with oh money and so on and so forth. You know,
Now, I don't know how much you can share about the deployments that you had and where you were, but you were in the Middle East in your service, right? Yeah, and
yeah,
you served outside the U.S.
yeah,
So you got to engage with some of these jihadists
yes,
in your military service.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little
As
bit
far
like
as
where you were?
okay, well, so it was Afghanistan. As far as details of exactly, no, I can't. But
Fair.
yeah, but speaking of kind of what I mentioned with those little guys, little guys, I mean the ground guys, the operations there, they're flying overhead, and there was one time, this I can't say. You have night operations, of course, is when you have the advantage, right? So generally, that's when we're going to operate, and they know that. We did take off, and may or may not have forgotten the landing light on, basically the spotlight on the bottom. So we're flying there at night. And suddenly, I was sitting in the front seat for this. My backseater says like, "Is somebody shooting at us?" I'm like, what? Like kind of looking down, you can see these little flashes down there. I think they are. Wait, how do they know to shoot at us? Like, oh, kind of reach over, click. Okay, lights off. So yeah, they have a giant spotlight flying in the sky. Okay, so that aside, um, think of that one guy. He knows what's up there. He can hear the rotors, so he knows it's a combat helicopter, military helicopter, and he has the guts to go pull out his AK and start plinking into the night sky at what, as far as he's concerned, is a UFO. So they don't lack in courage. You know,
It, it's courage mixed with low IQ, I think, and lack of understanding of the consequences. Because, like, how do you think this is gonna end? There's literally a freaking attack helicopter from the U.S. Army flying in the air, one of the deadliest a tank flying in the air, one of the deadliest robots on the face of this planet. And then you're sitting there with your mujahideen kind of outfit and a Kalashnikov start shooting at it. What do you think is gonna happen? But that explains so much the Arab world. To those who don't understand, me and Daniel, we served in the military. I was in the special forces in Israel. You were a tank commander in Israel, and then later on, you were an Apache pilot in the U.S. The enemies that we had to face so many times, they don't think a day ahead. They react out of anger, zealous, I don't know what, religious, hocus pocus beliefs, and they just go. Like October 7th, for example, was a prime example. I mean, what did Hamas think? They came with with parachutes, with gliders, with motorcycles. They got them at clutches, and they came and attacked a nuclear weapon, a nuclear country. A country that have air force, submarines. Obviously, we're gonna go and demolish them, and then they even kidnapped people. What do they think? They think that they're gonna win? Probably yes. A lot of them, when you see the videos they were showing, they were like, Allahu Akbar, this is the best day of my life. They really thought they're gonna go and slaughter all the Jews, they're gonna go and defeat America. They don't think ahead.
yeah.
That's
Well,
my point.
it again comes down to that belief. If you believe that you're doing the will of God, who is going to convince them otherwise?
Yeah.
That's why there's also, I mean, not to get into this side of it, but the support in the West completely misunderstand the end goal and what the desire and the vision that they have for the future. And when God is on your side and you're doing the work of God, you can't lose. It might take time, which is why, right, every time the West right now, every time we get into an engagement, it's like, oh, it was the Iraq War, the Gulf War, the first one, right? Oh, then it was the War on Terror. Oh, before that, it was the whatever. We see it as these segmented, short little pieces of history. And each time we think, like, oh, this is the cause for this. Oh, right now, the war in Gaza is because of October 7th.
Yeah.
The Muslim world has been fighting this war for almost 700 years.
Yeah, that's insane. But bringing it back to the Houthis, I mean, hats off to our enemies, you can say, clownish as they may be. They did manage to land a rocket in the Israeli International Airport. It's basically almost the only airport in Israel. If they would have hit, I mean, where did they hit? They hit in a parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot near the, there's the wraparound road and then, and the parking lots.
So they hit in the parking lot. That's like, several meters away, tens of meters away, 100 meters away from the terminal. Imagine if they would have hit the terminal.
Yeah, let me show. I'm going to add another video right now that'll actually show you can see the terminal in reference.
If they would have done that, the damage that they would have caused is insane. They would have completely shut down the airport in Israel.
Mhm. Yeah. No, and remember, and that's Israel's one actual, well, not actual. They have a couple other international airports large enough, but that's the primary airport.
Yeah, well, yeah, not military airports and other airports, outside of my town, a lot they have one.
Yeah.
Should I add to stage the video that you just added?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah, play that one. So you can see the terminal. I mean, you see all the aircraft. You see the control tower. So you can see how close it is.
Come on, watch that again. I mean, if that would have landed on the airport or in an airplane full of tourists, just imagine the catastrophe. Yes, Israel did admit that this was a technical fault of the Iron Dome and the Chetz and all these, Kel David. They said that they managed to take down 95% of the rockets shot at Israel. So that 5% was just a matter of luck.
Yeah,
And
but let me give detail to that point. So that was a ballistic missile. Most of the ones they send over, because those are a lot more expensive. A lot of the things they send over are either the drone type or more of a standard missile. Ballistic missiles, the difference with those are very, very hard to intercept, even if you see them coming all the way from launch point. As we saw when Iran launched the ballistic missiles, they were coming in. Most of the missiles that were destroyed, they had to be intercepted during their travel, because once they get into terminal mode, at that point, it's they're moving too fast. It's
yeah,
almost
you
impossible.
saw that one just went down like a laser.
Yeah, because that's when they go into terminal guidance. So it turns on the boosters. It's not just dropping. It's not artillery. It's actually rocket boosting into the target in order to get through defenses. Which is why, if you remember the ones that Iran shot, that was over at night. That's why they looked like asteroids coming in, because the fire you're seeing there is the friction. It's re-entry friction. So you're not seeing rocket motors. You're actually seeing the whole missile heats up to glowing hot from the
I keep imagining, as a fighter pilot, and America actually helped intercept a lot of these rockets. I saw a documentary with some American pilots that they were talking about how they were chasing them. So you're literally flying a fighter jet, chasing these rockets almost in space, and then taking them down. Wow, that's insane. I think I sent you one time a video of the Israeli Apache that chased a drone that entered from Hezbollah and took him down midair. Have you seen that video? Remember that?
yeah.
What do you think about that as an Apache pilot?
I mean, getting an air-to-air kill as a helicopter pilot is always going to be something that you want, and that's just cool. No, but it's a small target, right? So the aircraft, the Apaches, they're ground attack primarily. I mean, that's their goal. Yes, they can be equipped with air-to-air, but it's not dedicated. It's not made for that. So being able to get those shots off, I mean, you get close enough, yes, you can get it with the gun, but it's not really easy, and they got it quick. So that was some good shooting on those guys
Yeah,
there.
no, the Israeli pilots are impressive. That's for sure. I've met a few of them. I've trained with a few of them. I mean, not with Apache ones, but the Black Hawk ones that used to take us to places.
Mm.
We used to call them Uber. That would piss them off. We'd call for an Uber. They'll come. We're waiting there in the sand dune with all our gear, and they're like, "Okay, when is the Uber coming?" We call them on the radio, and you can see that the pilot didn't like that. But yeah, they were impressive. They were impressive. But anyway, let's jump. As an American, I want to ask you a question. The Houthis have been definitely targeting American vessels.
Yeah.
That they're literally declared war.
Well, they you saw if you saw they almost managed to hit the Carl Vincent, the carrier that's in the area where the strikes are launching, the American strikes that were launched on the Houthis. That was from that carrier. That's of course they're with the carrier group, but they had to. I'm not sure what was launched. I think it was missiles from the reports I remember, but of course it's not that we have all the information. But anyway, they had to do emergency maneuvers, and one of their F-18s rolled off the deck into the water.
Really?
Yeah. So technically, the
So
Houthis managed to get F-18.
American camels managed to roll off an F-18 into the water.
No, but oh yeah, I did want to come back to that point when you mentioned, they're in sandals riding camels. They shouldn't be underestimated because remember who's supplying them. Okay, so when you think terrorists, normally you think especially if you're talking, you know, as you described them, sandals and camels. It's not just an AK. They don't just have some sticks of dynamite they got from Acme that they strapped to themselves. We're talking about ballistic missiles. That's a capability. Even when Russia was started using some of those ballistic missiles on Ukraine, that was a big deal because that's an advanced weapon. It's not. We're not talking mortars and unguided rockets. So remember the equipment that they're getting. So they can't be looked down upon too much as far as their capabilities. I mean, they're shooting drones, long range ballistic missile, not long range,
Yeah,
longer range than their normal things.
they're waging a war in a country that is very far from them. If one of these ballistic missiles would have been shot, let's say on an aircraft carrier, do you think they could have stopped it?
What if they would hit it? Hitting any kind of vessel is extremely difficult, especially with the defensive capabilities that they have. They have the whole umbrella there.
To stop a ballistic missile like that one, that would just go down like a laser on you?
I I don't know exactly all their capabilities. I'm not a Navy person, but they're made to defend from that. If you have a carrier group and you're not prepared to defend from any kind of potentiality, then
Yeah,
then what?
you're an easy target. You're like a cow floating in the water.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, because you have all those dedicated killing missiles. You're talking about those. One of the famous ones is the Chinese, the silkworm, for example. They're all made to go. They're what's called the basically they ride the waves. They're skimming the top of the waves. They're coming right at the height of the water, and they're hypersonic, so meaning multiple times the speed of sound. So being able to, so if you have a radar on the aircraft or aircraft carrier, the vessel, uh, trying to detect it, it's very hard against the background of the water. So
Yeah.
so what if Iran gets, let's say, ship killing missiles to the Houthis? I mean, yeah, they could absolutely hit a vessel in theory. I mean, that's what all those carrier groups are designed, trained, and equipped to deal with. But right, there's always that one in a million.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, one in a million. Play that. There's the other video we were talking about. This one. So, so this is this is Houthis in Yemen. If you look at the range of that shot,
هذه السيارة تأخذ الحارة القتلى.
get the beginning of it again, just so you can see. It's zoomed out so you can see the range.
يلا
Look
سد.
at the distance on that RPG shot. So,
يلا سد.
speaking of one in a million,
That was an RPG, man. That was
just an RPG.
Oh my god, that was like that guy must have became a hero in his tribe. But speaking of which, I mean, I've just saw a statement from. Well, I haven't read it deeply, but Donald Trump said something that he's telling Israel to calm down with the Houthis because they're reaching some kind of a ceasefire agreement with them.
Yeah, so that's what it sounds like. That the agreement came. The agreement is the U.S. will cease strikes in exchange for end of strikes on shipping. And from the what I saw from the reports is that this came as a surprise to Israel. So Israel apparently was not involved in these talks, and there was no this agreement didn't cover Israel, from my understanding in any way. I might be wrong. I didn't dig into this. This is just recent.
Yeah.
I can't say that I'm too happy about that. If Trump decided to just back off of that, striking the Houthis in exchange for protecting effectively business, while leaving Israel out to dry. But we'll have to see how that plays out. We don't know the details of the plan, and we don't know what his long-term plans are. He might be working something else, and this is a first step. I don't know.
Could be because, if one thing you learn about these people, Iran, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, you can't really trust them. you know, they never back the word. They never. And if they call for a ceasefire, it's just because they want sometimes it's a hudna. They want sometimes to regroup, rearm, and come and attack you again. So I don't. That's like putting a plaster on a bleeding, wound. It's not gonna stop anything. So I don't know. I'm not a warmonger. I don't want to see war, but it just looks like I don't know. After they managed to hit the Israeli airport, I mean, Israel have to take them seriously because imagine if that would have landed on some of the factories in Haifa,
Mm-hmm.
chemical factories, or in Dimona and other places. We don't want to share, you know, information, but there is places in Israel that are sensitive, and Israel is a small country.
Yeah. Well,
Only-
there's nothing that we would know that foreign intelligence doesn't know. So
Yeah, but
we're not in a position to reveal anything.
yeah, I know. But just imagine, I mean, that could have been really catastrophic. So I think Israel, I don't know what they're gonna do, but they have to react. They have to react because the Houthis have proven again and again that they are a force not to be, messed with. I see you just added another video.